twice on the same quarterback. Cousins with this tweet, tag, I'm it. I like that. Shortly after his agent announced the Redskins' decision on Twitter. Now, Cousins will be paid just under $24 million under the tag. So Redskins coach Jay Gruden told reporters today at the NFL Combine that he is hopeful the two sides can still agree on a long-term deal. The Redskins can still trade the quarterback if they choose to, but in that scenario, Washington would have to grant Cousins permission to talk to other teams and work out a long-term deal before a trade likely would be completed. If he were to be traded, Cousins' preferred destination is the 49ers, according to a source close to the quarterback. Stephen A., I want to start with you here. Should the 49ers trade the number 2 overall pick for Cousins?
No, they shouldn't. I like Kirk Cousins a lot. I think that he's shown that he can play. He's clearly better than average. He's passed for over 4,000 yards both seasons, just finished throwing for over 4,900 yards this past season. There's no doubt that he's been impressive, but there have been more than a few big moments where there was an APB out for him. You're looking for him. You can't necessarily find him. It's not that he was at fault, like he played like garbage or anything like that. But I'm just talking about when I hear the word franchise, I'm thinking difference maker. And that's not what I see in Kirk Cousins. I see him being a slightly better version than Alex Smith. Somebody that can make the requisite passes, do the job, even though he's more turnover prone than an Alex Smith. I'm just thinking of Kirk Cousins, and I wouldn't mind making a long-term investment with him if I'm the Redskins. It's just that when you talk about $100 million or anything like that, I'm scared to make that kind of investment, which is why I somewhat understand what they're doing, even though it's more money than anybody else is getting paid. It's 1 year at a time. The long-term risk is what leaves a little bit of trepidation, and that trepidation that exists within the Redskins tells me something. As Merrill Hodge said on the show yesterday, Tom and Max, there's something that's missing from Kirk Cousins that we may not know, but other people inside that locker room may know. I know that Kyle Shanahan is now in San Fran and all of that, and he wants work with Kirk Cousins, but I'm just of the mindset that to trade a number 2 overall pick, the only way I would do that if I'm the San Francisco 49ers is if there were no quarterbacks in the draft. And last time I checked, there are at least 2, including Deshaun Watson. I would think about that before I think about Kirk Cousins.
I would always rely on my basic thought with quarterbacks. If your general manager, or player personnel guy, your football intelligence people tell you this is the guy, this is your guy, he's your answer for the next 7 to 10 years, then to me there's no price that's too steep to pay. Kirk Cousins, to me, is a better football player than a lot of people give him credit for. 2 years as a starter in the National Football League. Steven recited some of the stats. He's averaged 27 touchdowns and 11 interceptions in those games. He's throwing for about 4,500 yards per season, quarterback rating about 100. Is he elite? No, I don't think he's elite, but he's a top 10 quarterback in my world, and I think you can win with it. I believe so, yeah.
Kirk Cousins is a top 10
quarterback? Yes, I believe he's a
top
10 quarterback in the National Football League. He's
do you want to count the guys ahead of him?
He's 28 years of age, and my thought is you're just beginning to see what he's capable of. Most NFL quarterbacks don't reach
He'd be
their
my 4th
prime.
pick in the NFC East. There are only 4 quarterbacks. He'd be 4 out of 4. I'd take Eli, 2-time Super Bowl MVP. I'd take Dak, was an MVP candidate as a rookie. I'd take Wentz, who I think might be better than Dak.
No, I wouldn't take Wentz right now.
Oh, well, right now, maybe not, but
listen,
going forward.
You shouldn't have to give up the 2nd pick of the draft for Kirk Cousins because the Washington Redskins have virtually no leverage. But let's just say that he goes out and has a monster year, and the Washington Redskins have a change of heart and decide that we want to sign him to an extension, and one that would pale in comparison or actually make the Andrew Luck contract pale in comparison to this one. Let's say that the Washington Redskins decide we want to franchise him for a 3rd year. Well, now you're not going to be able to get your hands on Kirk Cousins for another 2 seasons. I wouldn't give anything more than the number 2 overall pick. I wouldn't give a sweetener, so to speak. But if Kyle Shanahan thinks this is his guy, and we're starting fresh and we want to start on the right path, the 2nd pick of the draft. Let me give you the 2nd pick of the draft in the last 5 drafts. Okay. Marcus Mariota, Greg Robinson, Luke Jokel, RJ3, Von Miller. Those are number 2 overall picks in 5 of the last 6 drafts. That's a 40% hit rate. The NFL draft is one gigantic crapshoot. So I would suggest that the number 2 overall pick and nothing else wouldn't be too steep for me.
Way too steep for me. Here's the problem. I understand what you mean kind of theoretically. It's hit or miss. Although if you have the number 2 overall pick in the draft, just a first-round pick period, and you're just looking for a good player, you don't kind of overplay your hand, overreach, you should be able to find a good player or you're not that competent. If you're looking for a superstar, maybe you can crap out, so to speak. But top 10 quarterback, Kirk Cousins? Rodgers, Brady, Big Ben, Breeze, Luck, Carr. You mentioned Mariota, Winston, Matt Ryan. I mentioned Eli, Phillip Rivers. There are a lot of good quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't think
Phillip Rivers has thrown more interceptions in the second half of the season than the last. At this point,
would you take Kirk Cousins over Phillip Rivers?
Phillip Rivers is 36 years of age. Yes, I would.
You think Mariota's better right now than Kirk Cousins?
Yep.
Right now?
I take Mariota. But look, Kirk Cousins, I think, is a solid quarterback. I will say that. He is a starting NFL quarterback, and there's a lot of value in that. That's like being a starting point guard in the NBA. A solid, average starting point guard is a really good player because there are a lot of really good ones. But he's not that young. He's expensive, and he's not great. So given all those things, if you need him, the only way you trade a first-round pick high up, especially number 2 overall pick in the draft, is if he is a tipping point for your team that means you can win right now. But when you look at San Francisco...
You're right, because you could get Greg Robinson, an offensive tackle that isn't playing a lick right now at the number 2 overall.
Well, that's on you. You got to select wisely or trade down and get which is what I would do if I was San Francisco.
Is there a quarterback worth the second overall pick in this draft?
That's the point right now, is San Francisco needs so many more things than just a quarterback. Now, you could say, yeah, start with a quarterback. Sure, if he's 22 and he's inexpensive. But when he's 28, he's making $24 million.
If you don't have a quarterback, you don't have anything. You might as well just not play.
But if you have a quarterback and he's not great and he's already older and he's expensive and he inhibits your ability to get...
He's older. He's 28.
28 years old.
He's 28. We're looking at... Okay, I know you're going to say Tom Brady. It's going to be close to 40,
but you only take a guy like that if you're ready. The Niners have so many holes they need to address.
Like quarterback.
Yeah, I would say.
Right, like quarterbacks will get a young guy. Dak Prescott was in his early 20s. Carson Wentz.
I love how everyone loves Matt Ryan, and I'm a BC guy, and I like Matt Ryan a whole lot. But
now,
last year, everyone was suggesting last year that Matt Ryan was just an average quarterback. Kyle Shanahan takes him to another level. Matt Ryan takes him to another level. And I think Kirk Cousins in Kyle Shanahan's offense in San Francisco
Matt Ryan
may become Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's in his, early to mid-30s? Mm-hmm. So he's got
sometimes it works out that way and you find a Rich Gannon. Usually it doesn't, but sometimes it does. And I will say this. If you believe that Kyle Shanahan turns Kirk Cousins into Matt Ryan, then sure, I would trade for him too.
Matt Ryan turned the football over 21 times last year. 16 interceptions, 5 fumbles, and a lot of those interceptions were in the red zone. I love Matt Ryan. But in the second tier of quarterbacks in the National Football League, you go from a really good year to a pretty average year back to a really good year. That's just the nature of the beast.
How has Kirk Cousins played with the money on the line?
What did he have? 25 touchdown passes and 12 interceptions?
With the money on the line.
He had bad defense supporting him, a very moderately
good offensive team.
Ranked rushing attack.
He had weapons. He had weapons, and he's okay. You know what Kirk Cousins is? At best, middle-of-the-pack quarterback, which is a nice player. 28 years old and expensive. You're going to give up the number 2 pick in the draft for that?
I would.
Yeah. So it's a gamble. We've seen that. Tom, thank you so much for being with us. Always fun when Max Kellerman's all over you. Why does Russell Westbrook's performance last night have someone rethinking their MVP pick this season? They will explain that.
The return of J.R. Smith being imminent, with the acquisition of Kyle Korver, with the return of Kevin Love expected to take place, there are no excuses for LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers. So as far as I'm concerned, even with the four-headed monster that is the Golden State Warriors, because of what has transpired over the last 3 days with these 2 pickups in Bogut and Darren Williams, the Cleveland Cavaliers are officially my favorite to win the NBA championship, whether Kevin Durant is 100% or not.
I understand why you say that. I disagree. Now, it seems silly to argue this at this moment because it seems unlikely to me that even if Durant gets back, he will be 100% by the finals if and when the Golden State Warriors make it. But let's just take hypothetically that Durant never got hurt or that he comes back at 100% by the time the finals roll around and the Warriors make it. I understand why you would take the Cavs because You know, what are the Warriors susceptible to in the absence of Bogut? A team that rebounds really well, a team that can post. And you just mentioned, you know, we talked about Darren Williams. They needed a point guard off the bench. He's a lot better than Dellavedova to do what they need him to do off the bench. Spell Kyrie and LeBron as the primary ball handler, run the pick and roll. I mentioned Derek Williams. Bogut gives you, obviously, a huge rebounding advantage with Tristan Thompson and Kevin Love and LeBron James against a team that can struggle there at times in the Golden State Warriors. But Golden State, defensively, is susceptible to a team that can post up and in the absence of Andrew Bogut. And what I'm saying is the presence of Andrew Bogut on the Cavs is not the best way to exploit the absence of Andrew Bogut on the Golden State Warriors. In other words, he is offensively not nearly what he is defensively. And so though I understand now he pops up on the rival team and you think it highlights the absence on the Warriors, in fact, he offensively is probably not the best way to exploit the absence of him defensively on the Warriors.
Yeah, but my retort to that would be Golden State's bench is what ultimately carried them to a level of success. Now, granted, they lost to Cleveland, and we understand that the health of Steph Curry, the suspension of Draymond Green, ultimately injuries to Bogut, who was out the last 2 games, and Andre Iguodala, who was hobbled the last 2 games, definitely spelled doom for them. But the thing that the ingredients to the Warriors' success over the last couple of years has been their depth, not just their perimeter shooting, not just their stars, but their depth. Cleveland, they had questionable depth and still managed to get to 2 finals and win a chip. This year, they now have depth. So you're talking about LeBron and Kyrie. Not only do you have the shooters around you, but now you've gotten depth for Tristan Thompson. The combination of all of those things with the acquisition of Derek Williams, who is active, who I think is going to be just as vital to this team as I perceive Matt Barnes as being to the Golden State Warriors. I think it's one of those situations where if I've got to look at depth, I'm going to say even. If I have to look at physicality, I'm going to say Cleveland. If I have to think about playoff basketball and how physical play is relatively allowed, particularly as the championships rounds wane. Why, Max? Because referees, as it gets deeper, nobody wants to take the outcome away from the players.
That's right.
They want to let you play. And if they let you play, then they're going to allow Cleveland to sort of impose their physical will. And Golden State's answer is going to have to be perimeter play.
And you live by the
and
three,
how are you going
the
to do
three,
that?
And they better
That's
be
what
hot
I'm saying.
in that case. Look. And the best players on Cleveland, by far. LeBron's a lot better. I know we can argue about LeBron is so much better than Durant and Steph and everyone else. He's in a category by himself, and Cleveland has him on top of that. But I'll say this. Here's my big takeaway from all of this that we just discussed. There was an arms race. Golden State way up the ante with Kevin Durant. Cleveland has been addressing Kevin Durant all season, and they are fully loaded, and all of a sudden, you take away Kevin Durant. It's like an arms race between 2 countries and one suddenly demilitarizing. I mean, yes, at this moment, given what we know about Kevin Durant, Cleveland has to be considered the prohibitive favorite.
You could argue they have the best roster top to bottom, Cleveland.
Right.
We'll leave it
so
on.
you agree with me when you say that Cleveland is the prohibitive favorite?
If Durant's out, if this new information is right.
He's saying even without.
No, if Durant...
I'm saying even with Kevin Durant.
If Durant comes back for the playoffs, I still like Golden State.
Are they your favorites?
Yes. If Durant comes back for the playoffs. But when you get up here and start talking about his health, it makes me nervous.
No, I understand. I'm saying to you, Max, I concede. You're saying if he's out, no.
Right.
If he's in, yes. I got it.
And as of right now, the Warriors aren't giving us a timetable. Durant's saying he will play, but we'll have an update on that in 4 weeks. Revis Island is back on the market, but will anybody scoop him? We will discuss that. And speaking of available players, Adrian Peterson is free to go anywhere. But trust me, you will not believe which team wants to sign him. Unbelievable. That's next.